Battle of Britain is about to begin. The whole fury and might of the enemy must very soon be turned on us. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat.
The Finest Hour DLC page for Gates of Hell has just gone live, and so has their trailer, which you saw a little bit of just now, but don't worry, I'll play it in full at the end of the video. Just use the timestamps below if you want to check it out first. It's honestly pretty sweet, but definitely make sure you come back to watch the rest of the video, as I'll be going over all the latest details and screenshots from the upcoming DLC. Alright, howdy folks, welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining us as we're taking a look at all the new info today. The Commonwealth campaign consists of 7 scripted missions as well as 3 skirmish battles. Some of this information we've already known, but now we actually get some confirmation. They are set during a few different campaigns on the Western Front, from the British Expeditionary Force, or BEF, fighting to survive the invasion of France in 1940 and their withdrawal from Dunkirk, to the Allied invasion of Normandy, set not just around Pegasus Bridge, but as I kind of also guessed before, around Caen. Finally, there will be some battles set during Operation Market Garden, which I'm super excited for, as well as some of the pair drop operations, perhaps varsity, into Germany itself. The Germans get a few new missions as well, which we did talk about, with 5 scripted as well as 1 skirmish battle. The campaign initially follows Rommel's 7th Panzer Division, the famous Ghost Division, in its blitzkrieg into France as it's fighting English and French divisions. Then there are several missions where you fight to defend the Atlantic Wall, as well as performing counterattacks in both Normandy and Market Garden operations. Again, more Market Garden is super awesome to see. And finally, the brutal battle for the Scheld finishes up the German campaign editions for Finest Hour. Quick note here, yes, there is a mention of the French armies here. I do believe they would have announced it if they were part of the DLC. However, it does reinforce for me the idea that there will be a small future DLC depicting some of this 1940s French army, some of the French resistance stuff even sprinkled in left or right. So obviously, like I mentioned, Finest Hour adds early, mid, and late war periods, including 4 doctrines for each period, and there will be 20 new Western Front multiplayer maps to fight on, but 25 new conquest maps, adding Dutch, Belgian, Northern French, and also I'm assuming German landscapes for conquest. However, since the Germans will be fighting the Commonwealth in the early war days of the Western Front in 1940, they're also getting a few new toys in their arsenal, mostly for conquest, maybe some for multiplayer as well. We'll have to see what those are as the DLC gets released. With the addition of the Scottish, the bagpipes could not be missing. Yes, those are mentioned separately here as being added to the DLC. They've also confirmed that it is, like I said, the largest DLC, surpassing even Liberation. There were quite a few comments I should add here about some of the Commonwealth nations being missing. According to one of the developers, adding these accents or multiple dialects would raise the cost of the DLC beyond what they deemed acceptable. Now keep in mind, this is also a DLC set around the Western Front specifically. My assumption here is in future DLCs, perhaps once in Africa, Italy, or the Pacific, we'll see some of these nations that people were talking about, like the Welsh, maybe South Africa, Australia, and India, just to name a couple of countries, or people were like, hey, where are these nations? Well, maybe that's the answer for now. There's a ton of screenshots, and I figured we'd just take a look at them, and obviously, as always, feel free to correct me or add any info in the comments. I'm in no way an expert, so it's always nice to have some of you show off your knowledge down in the comments below. In this first picture, what I believe are a bunch of Cromwell fords in a very Dutch, or at least like lowlands-esque landscape. There's also a Churchill tank variant in the background. I'm not sure which variant, but it does not appear to be obviously an early war variant or an AVRE variant, but which of the later war variants it is, someone in the comments will probably let me know. On the second picture, we have German infantry with a Panzerschreck and MG42 ready to ambush advancing infantry alongside an accompanying Churchill tank. It looks like it's kind of set during the Normandy breakout, perhaps like outskirts of Caen-esque scenario. Is that Sten gun a Mark I variant perhaps? I'm not super familiar with Sten guns or even Commonwealth equipment in general, I should add. I'm not really sure if I should recognize this area. I was looking for like an ambushing pack gun or some camouflage soldiers. Even looked into the trees. I wasn't able to really find anyone. It does really get me excited for some market garden scenarios, which we did have the Nijmegen map, which was fantastic in the Airborne DLC, but some real market garden content I'm really excited for. Talking about market garden, this is the Arnhem Bridge, likely viewing from north down towards the south. I spent a bit of time, but I don't think there's any like new German units really visible here, but obviously if I'm wrong, do correct me. It does mean we're getting very likely to play as British paratroopers fighting in Arnhem on and around the bridge. It does solidify for me the one thing about Gates of Hell I've just found archaic ever since the release. It's that house to house or even like inner house CQB combat. I might have worked to figure this out by making buildings into like an entity. If we had something like that, Gates of Hell would be like absolute chef's kiss. It's that CQB area that I think it really suffers once you get into the same building or buildings next to each other. On this picture, we have some Commonwealth Airborne near what I believe is the Arnhem Bridge, with obviously their famous red berets, their Denison smogs, as well as a 6-pounder AT gun, which I assume was brought in via glider transport. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go on a quick tangent here because I am Dutch. I used to live right between Nijmegen and Arnhem for 2 decades. This is really close to my heart for lots of reasons. I found this out while researching. Hopefully you guys don't mind a little bit of a historical addition. Sergeant John Baskyfield was in charge of a set of 2 of these 6-pounder AT guns, which were set up to defend a road somewhere between Arnhem and Oosterbeek a few days after the initial landings had happened. The crews of these guns managed to destroy 3 German tanks, of which 2 were Tigers, after waiting and let them get to within 90 meters before ambushing them with those 6-pounders. One of the crews of these guns was killed or basically wounded beyond being able to perform their actions, so Baskyfield jumped on the gun and worked it by himself, the loading, the aiming, and the firing. After this gun was destroyed, Baskyfield, who miraculously survived, was wounded. Instead of retreating, managed to make his way to the other gun, where he aimed to do the same, and he actually found out that this crew had been taken out of action as well due to gunfire explosions. From that position, he managed to disable another German tank before he was eventually killed due to just the amount of firepower the Germans were putting onto his position. And for those actions, he was actually posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross, which is the equivalent, so to say, to the Medal of Honor, the highest award for gallantry the Commonwealth can give upon one of their members of the armed forces. A little bit of historical addition that I thought was really interesting and neat. It doesn't really add to this picture, but maybe you think it's interesting, let me know. On this picture, we have some Commonwealth artillery units, which I believe are BL 7.2-inch howitzers. Not really too much to say here, so it kind of makes up for the longer history lesson with the previous picture. Here we have some what I believe are Horsa gliders with airborne as well as some crew-served weapons nearby. They look to be the American M8 light howitzers. This remind me a lot of Postscriptum, which is now obviously Squad 44. It's getting me really excited to relive and reenact some of Market Garden in Gates of Hell, with now obviously tons and tons more options for the Allies, as well as of course the environment that the battles would have taken place in. In this next picture, we have early war Commonwealth troops setting up the Dial line. I only know that because of the name of the screenshot, so thanks developers. An attempt to stop the German invasion into France by using the Dial River as a natural defensive barrier, with a Matilda II in the background, as well as what I think is a quick firing or QF 2-pounder AT gun in the foreground. Here we have another picture of what we saw earlier, just some airborne running between landed gliders, more of a close-up, kind of a cool action shot. Kind of reminds me of some of the Hell Let Loose maps. Here we have gliders on approach as already landed airborne are leaving their gliders and are making their way to the famous Pegasus Bridge. Now, while it's been done and shown in video games and movies over and over, I'm still excited to see how the developers have managed to hopefully make this one still feel interesting to play, regardless of the historical outcome being so widely known already. Here we have a pair of what I think are Matilda 1s, probably seen during the BEF's retreat back to Dunkirk in 1940. Now, the Matilda 1 actually had decent armor, for relatively speaking anyway, but it only had machine guns, and this is obviously completely obsolete by the time the Battle of France even begins. So after this, these tanks were completely withdrawn from combat service. What's interesting is that the Matilda 2 was a completely different design, but it still took over the name of the Matilda, just becoming Matilda or sometimes Matilda 2. Here we have what I believe is the Comet tank firing its 77mm gun, which is effective against German armor like the Panther and Tiger tank, seeing action for just a few months in very early 1945. This picture, by the way, is taken on the the exact same area as picture 3, just a little bit lower and more zoomed in case you were interested. And this is one of my favorite Commonwealth World War II tanks. I really started to appreciate this vehicle after playing a ton of Rob's Mod multiplayer way back in the day for Men of War Assault Squad 2, so I'm very excited to just racing right for the Comet when I get to Conquest, when I get my hands on the Commonwealth Finest Hour DLC. A Commonwealth soldier here staring at what might be 2 early war variant BF-109 fighters. I'm saying that very questioning because I'm not really sure it's hard to tell, but it would make sense because the other BF-109 in the game is kind of the late war variant amongst the wreckage of several vehicles, with the remains of what might be a cruiser Mark II on the right side right there. Now we have a QF 4.5-inch howitzer in the foreground as some BF-109s are strafing more Allied troops in the early war, probably also set during the Dunkirk evacuation, at least in the time frame. Here we have a zoomed in shot of a Matilda II in France. This is something I did not know, by the way, about the M3. I knew there was 2 names for it, the Lee and the Grant. I did not know that they actually were different tanks until literally right now, where I researched this, where the M3 Lee is the American one and the M3 Grant is the British turret, so to say, because the British wanted to place the radio set next to the commander in their turret. So we have 2 different tanks that are honestly very similar outside of the turret. The Archer tank destroyer, something that's been always kind of weird, but now with the addition of Gates of Hell having a reverse key, this is actually a great time for this vehicle to be released. It's a Valentine tank chassis that they flipped 180 degrees with a brutal 17-pounder gun mounted to ambush German armored vehicles. The idea here that the vehicle reverses into position with its gun pointed at the enemy. It fires, gets 1 or 2 shots, and it's going to use its relatively decent forward speed, as it's already pointing forward, technically speaking, to get out of dodge. Now this is also done not just to give it sort of this ambush idea, but if they would have flipped the 17-pounder, it probably would have meant that the vehicle was too heavy to actually mount that 17-pounder on the front. Here we have a set of Daimler or Daimler. I've never really known how to pronounce this name, and people have tried to tell me. I just never really picked up on it. Armed with a 2-pounder gun used in the scout role. Now this 40mm gun does give it a decent punch against other light scout vehicles it may encounter in some place on the battlefield. And then finally, this awesome shot set during the Dunkirk evacuation. This looks to be from like a cinematic intro, perhaps to a Dunkirk mission, or maybe it's stuff from an outro. Either way, it doesn't take away that there's going to be some boat assets being added, as well as it's cool to see what sort of mission we can look forward to hopefully playing in the very near future. Now, before I let you watch the full trailer, I wanted to thank you for watching the video. Please do correct or add any information you have regarding the images and what I said or maybe said wrong, and tell me what vehicle or unit you are looking most forward to checking out when the DLC launches. Mine obviously the comment, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Our Navy is strong. Our Air Force is much stronger. The whole world is against Hitler and Hitlerism.
The Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
The whole fury and might of the enemy must very soon be turned on us. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. Victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. For without victory there is no survival. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields. If necessary, for years. If necessary, alone. Victory, however long and hard the road may be. We shall go on to the end. We shall never surrender. the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say this was their finest hour.